We're back. It's Feed Media Group. We help businesses use music, and a big part of that is curation. I'm here with two of my colleagues from our 8-member curation team, both of who are also excellent music writers and regularly contribute to our blogs. I've got Claire McConnell and Juan Hernandez Cruz. And I'm also in the curation team and do some writing as well for our blog. So we're excited today to dive into Beyonce, to talk about her and her music, the new album Renaissance, which drops on Friday, and how we use Beyonce in curation, and on and on. And I know we're going to run out of time. But fortunately, we have our Beyonce resident expert with us, Claire. And Juan also is always tapped into all things current and music. And so by implication, that includes Beyonce, of course. And as a curator for Feed Media Group, I am fluent in Beyonce too, because we couldn't do our jobs without her music, and the music, as we'll learn, of Destiny's Child, which still has tons of cultural currency. But let's start with everyone's relationship to Beyonce, if you will. How did you become a fan? You consider yourself a part of the Bayhive? Just a little bit of a sense of that. And Claire, I'd love to hear from you on that.
Sure. Yeah. Beyonce is definitely, my introduction came through Destiny's Child. It was a pretty pivotal, like mid-late 90s music influence for me growing up. I have a few memories of some backyard choreography to various Destiny's Child songs with my friends.
Are there any videos? Are there videos?
No, I mean, luckily smartphones were not around also during this time. It would, take a very good camcorder to resurrect those. But yeah, so definitely a big influence on my musical taste at that point. Even like in the movie Charlie's Angels, and having Independent Woman in that movie was sort of like, especially at the time, was a really big like song for a movie type of crossover that still like lived on their album in a very natural way, which is kind of a unique and hard thing to do. And then when Beyonce went solo, that was just a great album and soundtracked many of my high school dances. So it's been really fun to get to like grow and see as Beyonce's art has evolved, and be able to be a fan of hers, both as from a music perspective and from like just what she stands for, how she is able to cross genres and be a voice in the Black community, and just be a figurehead in that way too.
And Juan, let's hear from you. So Claire's been there since the beginning. She's an OG Beyonce fan, and that's great to have on our team for sure.
I'm an appreciator, right? So my lineage to Beyonce is, if you're about 30, you had to have grown up with Destiny's Child. I mean, I remember being in 8th grade and, seeing Destiny's Child, and that was like, such a wild year, right? You had Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. It was like music was exploding everywhere, and especially late 90s R&B. You had Dru Hill, you had, the whole implementation of like rap and R&B that was like, first started off with like Mary J. Blige and Method Man, and then kind of like really enhanced with not Faith Hill, that's a country artist, Faith Evans and Puff Daddy with the No Way Out record. So Destiny's Child in that point and in that time were super important to the progression of that style throughout the 2000s, right? And so to see artistically and business-wise someone take that step from being in a group like that at the cusp of the millennium, and then growing out of that into what really is, like, she is one of, if not biggest pop stars currently in the world today. I mean, Beyonce is very big and very celebrity-like, and there's not many musicians that really get to that echelon. And it has a lot to do with, right, the story, right? Beyonce's story is magnetic. You know, you're able to see it in real time, very much like Michael Jackson. You were able to see him from Jackson 5 all the way up to, you know, unfortunately when he passed away. But to be able to see something like that, it's very empowering. It you know, it's something that influences culture. It's something that necessarily changes culture, and that's kind of like what happens whenever Beyonce, you know, puts out a project, right? I mean, just simply talking about Lemonade, the last project she did was it was a historical project, and for what it is, I mean, she's a historical artist. So I, again, appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, and interesting roots too of she had before Destiny's Child, there was a girl group she was in, I mean, virtually like pre 10 years old, called Girls Time. And so she also, yeah, had her sort of early girl band roots along that same way. And yeah, I mean, I think like the fandom, I think, I don't know, I think the word pop star kind of doesn't quite hit it for Beyonce sometimes, of like she is just this like cultural icon in a way that is both like you know, what she does is so great and appreciated, but is not like in search of being that number one. It like it does at least appears like that just sort of happens, which I think is sort of like part of the mystique about it all as well. In addition to, I think, being able to, you know, really prove that she belongs where she is. And when you see her live performances, there's, you know, just no doubt in your mind that, you know, she's the queen.
Yeah, so live performances, I mean, we definitely need to get your take on hearing Beyonce live. I mean, I know you've heard her live before, Claire, and specifically you were at the famous Beychella of 2018, which of course, both of those weekends of Coachella that year were just subsumed in the excitement and the presence artistically and musically of what she accomplished there. Take us back to that and give us a flavor of what that was like, because I mean, as a music lover, it's one of those, you know, eat your heart out that you weren't there kind of moments, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So it was an interesting story in that it was my first and only time to Coachella. I'm not somebody who like goes every year or anything like that, or even really attends like many music festivals in general. But I knew because she had to cancel the year prior because she was pregnant, it was pretty much a guarantee that she was going to perform the following year. So we were like, okay, great. Like, let's hop on the early bird tickets. We know for sure we will go. At the time, I was actually taking some time off of work to travel, but I was able to plan it so that I was back in California for a friend's wedding in addition to Coachella. And the performance was such that, like, with my friends, we were just sort of talking about like whatever you did to get to Coachella was worth it. Like whatever, you know, if you had plane issues, if, you know, where you're staying wasn't ideal, like anything that, you know, made it harder for you to get there, it didn't matter. That this performance was, it just, you had the feeling in the moment of like, because it was so different in terms of like, even in comparison to other sort of like headlining sets at a music festival, there was never like, the songs were like that there was a set list, which you kind of see if you listen to like the Homecoming as the album, is like they all bleed together, they come back around, there's different points of inflection, and there's, yeah, it's not like, okay, then she did this song and then this song. It's all together a like singular performance that is sort of like hard to, you know, break out in certain chunks, and is really easy to like just, yeah, be in awe of seeing her do what she does best, both in like in such a big crowd, to connect with people in that way, to have this sort of like fierceness that she exhibits on stage, but that is also like still very like humble and knows her roots, and like able to bring out Michelle and Kelly from Destiny's Child and her sister, to just be on the stage with her, to share that moment with people in her life who are really important to her. Jay-Z did came out for Deja Vu, which of all their collaborations is not the most well known. So you kind of got a sense of like, oh, like here are still the things that are important to the entirety of her career and up until that point. And, you know, she was very conscious of the fact that she was the first Black female headliner of Coachella. And that was an important, as you know, Coachella's been sort of this like icon in music tastemaking, that was a really big deal. And she got to acknowledge the historically like Black colleges and universities also in that art, and bring that culture to a very wide audience through that. So yeah, it was an incredible thing, and something I'm sure I'll tell my grandchildren about.
Well, thanks for giving us a flavor of that. I mean, it gets at a lot of the different facets, I think, of the, as you said, mystique of Beyonce, and also just the cultural juggernaut that she is, and that, you know, despite the barriers to entry, you know, for, you know, people of color and or women, that she just keeps bursting through them is, I think, an impressive thing, that you got to realize how much went into that, but that she, you know, it's a community thing where she's taking people with her. And I think that kind of all with me type of element of her music is so powerful and like really obvious when you hear her songs like Formation, right? Like it's all about, you know, or Girls Run the World, like girl power, powerful, you know. Juan, you mentioned in our prep call a little bit about the Bayhive and the family dimension of culturally, you know, what she captures, like, because Claire alluded to it, but give us a little more of a sense of your take on that for what she means for the culture and things of that nature.
I mean, I can only really speak to, I used to work at a warehouse, right? And at this warehouse, I had a friend, and she was a Beyonce fanatic. And one of the things that, you know, after talking with her, was that her whole family loved Beyonce. You know, Beyonce is not just like, she's not a flavor of the week type artist, you know, and she has surpassed so many different types of tropes, trends. I mean, if we look at when she started, she was in a group of a lot of amazing R&B artists, Brandy, Monica, Aaliyah, you know. And I mean, of course, Aaliyah passed, but Brandy and Monica are still around, you know. They're still releasing records, but what's the difference, right?
TLC, Mary J. Blige, like there were, to your point, there were a lot of amazing artists making music that was similar in a sense.
But the difference with Beyonce is that her as a curator, right? Because I'm always going to stress it. She influenced the music, but there are writers, because, you know, there are people that essentially play the music, right? And those are people that are not as important, but shouldn't be forgotten. And one of those is my man, The Dream. The Dream is an incredible artist and producer. And actually, one thing that never really struck me before was that his vocal range has a very similar range to Beyonce. So I think the both of them working together is actually pretty awesome. But yeah, Beyonce as a person who stretches the different decades, right? Because she's been around since '99, right? It's 2022. That's 22 years. That's so many people that have been touched by her music and touched by the events that she's, you know, been able to, like Baychella, right? There's not going to be another Baychella. You know, there's only one. So for her to have given that to her fan base is extraordinary. It's a great thing to see.
So we're on the eve of the new Beyonce album. If you're just tuning in, she hasn't released an album in 6 years, and Renaissance is coming out on Friday. We're all excited. The Bayhive is understandably fired up. We know, I was just talking to my wife, we know it's going to be a game changer. You know, she's proven it. You know, she has a sustained ability to keep pushing the envelope and being so authentic to herself and her fan base, but also pushing music forward. And it's exciting just to witness that and to feel like you're some small part of it in terms of discovering the music yourself and having this cultural moment. Like, that album, I would say we all could feel unequivocal that Renaissance is going to dominate the next year of pop culture. You know, we could say with likelihood. Now, quickly, I'm going to go back to the curation element of Beyonce, which you touched on, which I love, and we're curators. So I'm going to make a quote, and then I do want to say, what are we thinking is going to be next for the music? I want to hear from Claire. Like, what do you think's coming? I want to hear from Juan. But first, back in 2017, Noisy UK named Beyonce as the music industry's forefront curator, with the following quote from Lemonade songwriter Diana Gordon. And this substantiates what you said, Juan, is there's a whole army of people that are supporting her artistically that may be invisible to the general public, but they're carefully chosen. And those insights and instincts she has are just they're fundamental to her art and what she's accomplishing. So here's the quote. Beyonce is a scientist of songs. She can take two songs, say, I like two lines, I like the melody, then let me use that for let me use that for a verse and a bridge and write the whole middle. So a lot of pop artists these days do that, but like the extent to which she discreetly curates this bit with that bit with another bit is with incredibly discerning taste to have those instincts and to pull the right things from the best people. We know that as curators when we create a playlist. The best from this, the best from that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. She does that in terms of her artistry. So we've heard the one song, Break My Soul. It's obviously house influence. It's got a throwback vibe to the 90s. We've talked about it offline. What do we know about the other 15 songs? Predictions? What are we thinking? Claire, where do you think she might be heading next?
I like to not make predictions about that sort of stuff and be surprised. I think that's some of the fun of being one, a fan of music, and B, a fan of Beyonce is, like you've sort of said, she has the power to like move the needle. She's never going to be a follower. She's the one moving the needle first. That's how it's been and how I definitely see it going in the future. But I think, and sort of what I was talking before, how I think like the term pop star falls short for Beyonce. I think it's because of her intention as an artist. All of these decisions that she makes are very intentional, done with purpose, and more so even an artistic purpose. There's meaning behind the imagery she uses. Everything, every photo shoot is very thought out, and so there gets to be, or yeah, that's why I do think like the term artist really does apply in that way. Is that she's so thoughtful in how she is matching music and visual, all that sort of stuff. I think what'll be most exciting is sort of this more foray into dance. I know in a quote I think either with Vogue or Harper's Bazaar, and talking about the album is she just really wanted it to be celebratory, and it was very aware of, in coming out of the pandemic, that people needed to have some joy in their lives, and she wanted to be a part of that. And so I think this album will reflect that.
Let's talk about this, and Juan too. You can sprinkle in your little predictions on the album, but let's talk about how we use Beyonce, because we use her music a lot, and we use Destiny's Child music a lot. And I'm so sorry, I just briefly lost my train of thought. In terms of the prediction that her music's going to be dance. Well, she said that in a sense, like that's music to our ears because we know it's going to be really utilitarian for us. We curate for 50 fitness brands, so up tempo is good for us. And maybe we're going to keep striving towards the term that Claire coined a year ago very cleverly about pop music, is that we're still approaching peak disco. We're not there yet. Beyonce might push us across the line, but Claire actually has an article mostly in the can about Beyonce's top 10 workout songs, and it's not opinion. We've used proprietary data from 550 million plays annually across those 50 fitness brands. So why is her music so great for fitness? Maybe we'll start with you, Juan, and then maybe Claire, you can spill the beans a little bit about what are some of those top 10 songs. Why'd they make the list? This is where the rubber meets the road for us as curators, where the love we have of music generally aligns fully with what we do professionally. Juan, let's hear from you on Beyonce and Destiny's Child and fitness.
I mean, let's be real, right? Destiny's Child is a very popular group, and so is Beyonce. They fit certain demographics as far as age and also period, right? So if I'm curating a 90s playlist, I think Sten's brought it up, I would be putting that first Beyonce or that first Destiny's Child record, mostly because it had the hits. You know, Girls Time, I didn't really know too much, but that first Destiny's Child record, oh man, Bills, 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 come on now. That was a fire song. So, you know, when I look at doing that type of playlist or I'm sorry, station, yeah, I am going to be utilizing that. Whereas if I'm looking for, you know, nostalgia of the aughts, you know, I'm going to be putting, you know, all of the stuff that she's put out in that time. And the thing about Beyonce, which is so amazing, it's like the same thing like Madonna or, you know, even Prince before he died, right? They're still putting out quality music, right? And they're all music that legitimately reflects popular culture. And, you know, if you were to listen to a Madonna song today, reflects popular music today, very much like Beyonce does today. And I know that Claire doesn't like to do it, but I look at music as a sport, right? This record is going to be very much like that Donda record where it's going to really push some sort of like that dance that we're talking about, that peak disco. You need someone like Beyonce to put out that record. So then people like Amarie could put out a dance record, you know, or someone like, I don't know, Sweetie, all of a sudden is like, you know what? I'm going to rap. I'm going to do my Beyonce thing, but I'm also going to do some disco too, or Chloe, you know? It's so important, this like kind of bravery to keep pushing forward, to give the younger and the youth more space to be an artist.
No
So I went
boundaries.
along. I went too long.
No, that's great. That's great because I think that the boundary erasingness of her music is very much consistent with what we find in the 2010s. Is more genre barriers becoming invisible and more porous. You know, Lil Nas X doing a hip hop / country everything song. You know, and like, but Beyonce is one of the artists that has pushed that forward, right? So authentically, she has the ability to bend barriers and break them. And to your point of like breaking into areas that have been maybe off limits to Black artists or things like that, when actually she's pointing back at older artists and saying, no, we were here first with dance music too. This is just a reminder. So, and Claire, will you spill any of those beans for us? Like, what are the top 10 workout songs of Beyonce? Because you have the data and you've put your editorial over the actual, you know, the quantitative information.
Sure. Yeah. So it was a hard list to, when I first was approaching the article, I was like, can I do 20 songs? I was like, it felt sort of criminal, especially when including Destiny's Child and all of her collaborations that are sort of one-off singles and don't really like belong to albums per se, to just do 10. I will, I guess in terms of spilling the beans, number one was Crazy in Love. So that was her first single with, well, not her first song with Jay-Z, and the first single off of Dangerously in Love. And I think that fits. It wasn't as surprising to me. That song has, in addition to just like a killer up-tempo beat, very celebratory, can be played in so many environments and just fits. Like no one is going to complain about hearing that song. I've heard it at weddings. You hear it working out. It fits. It's a great song for so many occasions. And then, as far as another one that was very high up there was Mi Gente with J Balvin and Willie William, which has also been just a great, she came in as a feature on that song and added a new verse. She sings in Spanish, even kind of raps in Spanish. I think she doesn't get enough credit as a rapper, but a lot of her vocals end up being raps, especially in the new albums. So that's a really fun one of like sort of also, if you thought, that the sort of like Latin reggaeton influence was, a trend in music, Beyonce is like, no, like this is where we're going. I'm in on this too. Like this isn't just Despacito getting all this credit for being a mainstream sort of like Latin hit in the US. Like this is great.
It's almost like, if I can say, it's almost like a seal of approval to your point, like bam, of approval from Beyonce. Similar with Megan Thee Stallion and Savage, which the original was awesome, but bam, that Beyonce seal of approval is like, lest you have any doubt, Megan Thee Stallion is here to stay.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Said it first, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's that power.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, Beyonce fan, and I heard the feature on it, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I was, but I was also kind of bummed because I was like, Megan didn't need it. It was a great song on its own, and like, so I don't know. I go back and forth in terms of like, yeah, but that's the other thing, and I think you see on Lemonade too, is like, she can collaborate on any genre. Daddy Lessons from Lemonade has a Dixie Chicks feature on from a CMA performance. She has Jack White on there. She has Kendrick Lamar. Like there's no genre that she can't touch. She has a duet with Ed Sheeran. You know, the limit does not exist on Beyonce. That's for sure. And then yeah, for some Destiny's Child, I was surprised in terms of like comparable play numbers from their catalog as well. We know like the throwback stations are really popular with our customers, so that's also kind of to be expected. But yeah, Say My Name was up there. Bootylicious was up there as well. And yeah, just they're all solid tracks. I easily could go to 20 with this, but it was
a sequel.
Sure. Yeah. We'll dive into the rest because there's definitely plenty. I think, it's most of them are upbeat, and just like she's got like sort of the, we were talking about with Lizzo's very empowering lyrics. She also occupies that space for that added motivation. So I think there's it's a slam dunk when it comes to curation for fitness using anything in the Beyonce verse.
So, well, I mean, we've got, as I said, our resident Beyonce expert, Claire, talking about the top 10 workout songs of Beyonce. We're in the unique position to actually substantiate that with the data. Hint here that there's enough in the can so we could do a part 2. Maybe we time that with the second album that's been teased. So there might be a second Beyonce album coming. We can only be so lucky. But we are almost out of time, unfortunately. I knew the time would get away from us. I would say in closing a few things. Look out for our new blog article that's going to publish tomorrow about Beyonce's top 10 workout songs. Claire, as I said before, is a superb writer. She could easily be in the employ of any of the marquee music journalists, including Rolling Stone across the country. So look out for her sage perspective in writing tomorrow. And any closing thoughts from you, Juan, on tomorrow before we just close it down?
No. Good.
Feeling good? Still an admirer? I think that
always.
I think you and I are both going to become bigger admirers after we hear Renaissance.
Why not?
Maybe we'll join maybe we'll join the Bayhive. We'll see. I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, here's the thing. There's nothing bad with appreciating.
No, nothing bad with appreciating.
I'm too Bayhive over too many other different styles of music, so it makes it tough.
I'm sorry I went off topic. As we all know, there's way too much music in the world to get around to listening to, and it's just a spoil of riches, and we're so lucky that we get to spend all day bathing in this incredible thing, which is Beyonce and DMX and all my old school hip hop albums. But thank you for tuning in. We're here every other week for Inside Music Curation. If you want to know anything more about curation, curating music for businesses, music curation, music for apps, check us out at feedmediagroup.com. Thank you so much. And thank you especially Claire and Juan. This was a true pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
It was awesome.